I'm Jay Brown, I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the President of Academic Life here at Queen Margaret University Students' Union. My role entails representing students' academic interests as well as taking on some of the kind of more well-being, equitable practice-focused aspects of student life as well. And this is my Talking Student Partnership interview.
Hello and welcome to our Talking Student Partnership interview series. I'm Chase Greenfield, he, him, a development consultant with Student Partnerships in Quality Scotland. Today I'm on the Queen Margaret University campus and delighted to be talking to Jay Brown for a conversation around changing learner needs, inclusivity, and all things partnership. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing good. Thank you for coming to visit me at QMU.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. So we first met, Jay, back in 2023, I think, right?
Yes.
Back in, was it That's Quality, breakout group, and you were just at the start of your sabbatical role. I think that's where I'd like to start, if that's okay, like going
Absolutely.
to that journey to that first little bit of your role as President of Academic Life. So where did it start for you as a QMU student, and how did you come to be the President of Academic Life?
Yeah, so I think when I first got here, I think it was 2019 I first started my first year at QMU. It was during the welcome talks I saw the student presidents at the time, and I was like, that looks fun, that looks really fun. But then I didn't really think too much of it afterwards, but very kind of soon into my first year I was elected class rep. So I was always very keen on being engaged out with just kind of doing my academic work. And then I continued to be class rep all the way through until fourth year. But I kind of getting a kind of taste of that representative role, and I really enjoyed it. So I went on to also be a peer-assisted learning leader. And then it came to my third year, and I was like, well, I might as well run in the elections. I think that's when it really kicked in, when the elections rolled round in my third year. And I went for Equality and Diversity Officer. I remember speaking to our deputy manager in the Students' Union during kind of our initial chat, and she was like, "So what's the aim for your time as an officer?" And I said, "Well, I want to be president."
That's great.
So it felt like a very kind of natural step up process, going from class rep, peer assisted learning work, to part-time officer, and then of course the top job in the end.
I think that's the dream for Students' Union, right? It's like you go through the whole ladder and you get the full range of experience from starting as a student who sees you at the kind of welcome events all the way up through class rep ranks, and then to a part-time officer, to a full-time officer role. So great journey and very natural progression.
Yes.
Turning to a sector perspective, I'm curious, so Scotland has gone through quite a bit of change even in the last 2 years that you've been President of Academic Life. We're in a period where learning needs are changing and demographics of learners are changing quite significantly at both colleges and universities, and seeing a strong lean towards individualized learning and specific learning needs. What are some of the stories you're hearing in your role and conversations you're having with students regarding changing learning needs?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones that I've kind of faced in my time as president has been student parents. Students who do have children, a lot of the time very young children, and kind of how the delivery of learning and teaching here affects them. There's a massive cost on things like childcare, and it's something that's not always available. And we're not a campus that has kind of an on-site nursery or a place where children can go. So a lot of the times, we have students who are having to bring kids into the class. And of course, just because of various kind of insurance situations or kind of safety reasons, a lot of the time students are being asked to leave class if they do have their children with them, which naturally is a huge barrier to their learning. And I think a lot of that is to do with kind of the delivery of academic timetabling, and kind of the pressure that we put on students to kind of be here and kind of knuckle down and then get on with it. I think a lot of the time higher education on a base level is catered to what I think some universities would consider their typical student, you know, your undergraduate, straight from school, turning 18, etc. And I think something that we all need to get better at, not just us at Queen Margaret University, is kind of being more open-minded and considering students that fall out with that bracket.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot more individuals are feeling empowered to revisit learning, to come back and get a degree, to want to boost their career in different ways later on in their life. So I think that's definitely something I would highlight here in particular. I've had a lot of students come to me, you know, they've not been able to attend class and they're missing out on academic materials or just kind of the general academic experience because they have children at home to look after. So I think that's definitely something I've noticed a lot in my time.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm really curious to talk a little bit more about how the union's approach has changed, or what you'd see on a sector-wide level, like how do we need to shift, you know, this kind of model we've built for the traditional first-time, 18-year-old undergraduate full-time student. How do we shift some of our, either volunteering structures or event spaces, so either practices you're currently doing or what you'd like to see in the future in the sector, ways that we can shift partnership activity to make sure no one's being left behind and not able to participate or doesn't feel safe doing so, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's not necessarily the easiest way of going about it. And I think, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on camera, but I think Sparks are very good at kind of listening. But I think listening is the key to success and being able to expand the opportunity. I think we need to be listening to the people who are first-hand experiencing higher education in this modern setting. We need to listen to the people who are having these experiences, with care, responsibilities, and with children to look after. So I think by taking more time to listen and hear directly from these demographics on how we can make student partnership more accessible, which isn't always the easiest task, but I think if we really stick to it and make these individuals feel that they will be empowered and that we will be there to support them and that opportunities will open the more they talk to us, I think that would serve us really well.
I know you've been working on establishing a Neurodiverse and Disabled Students Network here at Queen Margaret University and the Student Union. So, love to tell me a little bit about how that work is going.
I think one of the most important things for students is community. Having other students that they can relate to and bounce off of. I think it really combats that loneliness and isolation. So, kind of working with some of our part-time officers, our wellbeing officer, and our equity, diversity, and inclusion officer in particular. And we realised this was something that we would like to start up. So we're currently still kind of in the recruitment stage, finding out which students would be interested in getting them on board. And then I'm really hoping that in the next year we can leave by some provisions for the next officers committee to continue that work and offer up that space to neurodiverse students to come together.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I'm really curious to know about how that partnership is going so far with students with disabilities and how they're responding to this initiative that you all are working towards and establishing the network.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of students that are really excited by the opportunity to have a community there where they can kind of show up, unmask, and let themselves be themselves, essentially. And I think it's always good if there is something that's bothering you, to have other people that may relate to that and to be able to bounce kind of your concerns and your ideas on how things can be made better. And I think another really important thing about it that students are excited about is, there's power in numbers. So if there is anything that students are happy about and they want addressed, then I'm hoping that they'll feel empowered as a group to come forward and make some noise and make positive changes as a result of that.
Do you have any advice for another students association at a college or university around Scotland if they were looking to provide similar kind of community building and maybe building their own neurodiverse and disabled students network? What have you learned through the process of trying to establish it that you'd share with others?
I think you need to empower the students to want to do it themselves. I think at the end of the day, what's most important about a student network is that it is student-led and it remains student-led, the whole way through. I think at the beginning of forming our one in particular, we wanted to take a lot of advice from the staff network because they had already developed an established model that is working. And there was a lot of question about, collaboration between the staff and student network, and I said, I think that's a great idea. However, as long as the integrity of it being student-led stays at the helm of it. So empower your students to lead initiatives like this.
Right.
Empower your students to get involved in things like this. And I think that's where student officers can really come into play with it.
Yeah.
By having a focus on it through an officers committee. Those are students who are in a position to actively make differences. And if they can get the ball rolling and start those conversations, then hopefully students can kind of jump on board and feel empowered to make that happen. So yeah, empower your students and support your student officers on kind of ways that they can start initiatives like this. I think those are definitely the most.
A similar kind of initiative and topic that we've talked about in the past is kind of advocating for better support and inclusion for trans students. And I'm really curious to know what your vision for the future would look like in this regard. Like, how will higher education institutions in the future support trans and non-binary students and people of marginalized genders?
Yeah, so I think coming into the presidency in my first year, that was always a very big priority of mine, particularly around student data, particularly with kind of names and having dead names removed from student records, etc. And I think as I continue to kind of work on that, it just really kind of sparked off a passion that I want to make sure that trans and gender diverse students feel just as welcomed and safe and accepted on campuses as any other student. And I'm really hoping that by continuing to have a focus on this, that universities will become safer spaces for trans and gender diverse students. And I think one of the biggest ways of doing that is by having trans and gender diverse support training for staff, for academic staff. I think a lot of the time academic staff are scared to make a mistake. And they're scared to kind of properly go into that area because they either don't want to offend or they are scared that they're going to make mistakes. So I think by having training and led by trans and gender diverse leaders in those areas, I think we can empower staff to actually be able to have those conversations a lot more and to feel comfortable talking to and communicating with trans and gender diverse students, and to maybe not necessarily feel like they're walking on eggshells, that they can have these conversations. So I think training them to be able to support those students will do such a world of good. And I think by having staff in place that support these students, the students themselves are going to feel like they can go to those staff members a lot more and be a lot more open with kind of the issues they're facing and kind of whatever barriers it may have in terms of their learning. So I think it starts with training and having that actually be led by people with lived experience and people who are transitioning or people who are gender diverse or identify that way. So I'm hoping that by introducing some training and by actually encouraging staff to ask questions, I really think it will do the world of good, and I hope that initiatives like that will make universities a much safer space for trans and gender diverse students.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I one of the quotes that I really, you're talking about people being afraid of making mistakes, and a quote that sticks with me on that is that we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Like we have to be able to make mistakes and open up those dialogues and move forward to actually provide that great support and get to that perfect stage eventually. And no, I think that's really, really wise, and love the kind of elements about genuine dialogue as well being a really important feature of like being able to have conversations and actually seeking out those voices and making those spaces and starting with that training and development angle for staff as well. And I think that's what higher education institutions and further education institutions are all about, is that learning experience, and it applies to staff too. So one of the things I'm really curious about is your question of the semester campaign that you run through the QMUSU, and tell me a little bit about what the question of the semester campaign is, and then if we want to, we can talk about the current question.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea behind question of the semester is to kind of look at what is most affecting students at that time and then put out one question. So it's really light, it's really touch and go, and it's an easy and accessible way for students to provide kind of feedback on a specific area that's affecting their time. So it can be focused on pretty much anything to do with the student experience. And basically we put that out, so we do one each semester. and then we take the feedback from that, and then we present it at our student experience committee. That really kind of highlights big areas of change that are maybe necessary, or if the university has just done something new, made a new development, then it's a really good way for them to hear firsthand how students are finding it. So our question of the semester last semester, we just had a newly refurbished learning resource centre. So we decided to focus on that to see if the new refurbishments were actually meeting the needs of our students. And responses to that one were absolutely overwhelming. So I think it's really important for us to pick things that are very current and kind of very timely based on what we're hearing. And then our one this semester is focused around academic timetabling, which continues to be a bit of a challenge, which I believe not only here as an institution but throughout the sector. So yeah, it's a really good touch and go way to get some good feedback from students on what's impacting them.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it serves a purpose as well of kind of informing students a little bit about some of the back end behind some of these things, of a new learning and resource center, or how timetabling actually functions.
Yeah.
So, or a great dual purpose there. This question of the semester campaign may be contributing to this next kind of theme, but the Queen Margaret University Students Association, you guys have ranked number one for on the National Student Survey for representing students' academic interests. Congratulations, first of all. But what factors do you think go into this incredible achievement of first in Scotland?
Well, flippantly, I would like to say it was all me.
Yes, definitely the president of academic life.
Yeah, in my colourful array of cardigans and sweaters. But no, that is not the case. I think a lot of it has to do with, the question is particularly focused on academic representation. So I think a lot of it does have to do with our class reps, and particularly the relationship that we have as a union with our class reps. Awesome. We serve as their main support throughout the year. And I think we pride ourselves on having, we have our dedicated spaces where class reps can come and feedback to us. But also, I think we really pride ourselves on our very kind of strict open door policy for all students, but for reps in particular. If there is anything that reps are hearing or that comes up from reps, we will always make the time to listen. And I think something that we're quite good at as a union in particular is, holding our hands up and saying, okay, we don't necessarily know the answer to that question, or we don't know how we can directly help you with that, but we will find someone, we will know someone that has the answer to that question.
Can you talk about as well what the, coming from a former class rep background as well yourself, talk a little bit too about the class reps' relationship with their students that they represent?
Something that was always crucial for me was to not be sitting behind my desk and just responding to emails. It was really important for me to actually be out here and seeing students and being seen by students. I'm very, very proud of the relationship that I have with the students here. It can be difficult going to meetings sometimes because I very often get stopped. And as much as, a lot of people would see that as a bad thing, and maybe the people on the meetings would not be too happy about it, but I love being stopped by students. I love speaking to students. And I think by being so available and by being somebody that they can feel comfortable approaching, whether I'm on a stall in the university or whether I'm sitting in the union having a glass of wine, I think by being available and students feeling they can come up to me, it means that when they do have more serious concerns, that they can come to me with them and they can trust that I will do everything I can to make sure that they're looked after and that they're supported. We are encouraged through the training to take time at the beginning of class just to speak to students, to take time after meetings, to sit face to face with students and kind of talk about how meetings went, what actions were kind of put in place and what was discussed. So I think it's that contact, that direct contact, and that being kind of visible and present that makes students know I can go speak to Jay or whoever, if there are issues coming up. So I think that plays a big role in it.
Yeah, it sounds like a really powerful culture that you all have built together, and makes things really meaningful for students to be able to have someone to talk to about what they're experiencing. You were talking a little bit about your kind of community with your class reps as well, and one of the things within that I'd love to highlight and then throw over to you on is their academic council meetings,
Yes.
which I know you've kind of changed shape a little bit since your time as president of Academic Life. You might talk about how they're different and what's special about them.
Yeah, of course. So Academic Council was kind of is the main space for class reps to feed back to the President of Academic Life directly. It's also kind of the main opportunity for class reps to hold the student representatives accountable, in terms of kind of that academic life and the work that's being done. So Academic Council always took place in spaces like this, classrooms, learning environments, and I think that runs the risk of looking a bit more formal. And while the processes of bringing that feedback on to the university should be formal, I think our relationship with students should be a bit more informal, particularly as student representatives. We are on the same level as these students, where we're not big academic members of staff that are getting, that are seen as being a bit higher up to students, which I don't think is the case anyway. But so it's very kind of important to me that we make these spaces a bit more informal. I think a more informal environment also encourages students to speak up a little bit more, and when it's more relaxed and when you feel safe around peers and you feel you're in a safe kind of calm environment, I think it becomes a lot more natural to feedback and to feedback honestly as well. I think there's no real fear of being misinterpreted or there's no pressure to kind of sugarcoat things. By being in that comfortable atmosphere, you feel a lot more empowered just to say exactly how it is. And I think something that didn't necessarily sit right with me, particularly as kind of the main support service for our class rep, was kind of doing those things over here in the university building. I think something that I've really wanted throughout my time is for students to really identify with across the road with students' union spaces and Maggie's as their main kind of social space in particular.
Right.
I wanted to create more of an identity around that and know that this is your space as students. So I think by moving things over there, we also we give out free food. We feed our students. I think a lot of our academic councils tend to just due to scheduling and stuff fall over lunch times. So it's important to us that we are feeding students who are taking time out of their day, they're still eating. And I've been very pleased to see a lot of success with it, especially compared to my first year, because I did start doing them in spaces like this during my first year as a sabbatical officer. Attendance in particular, I'm very proud of. Previously we would get maybe maximum 20 reps, in spaces like these feeding back through academic council, but since moving over to Maggie's and making it a more informal process, we've seen upwards of 50 to 60 reps attending. I think it's always really nice seeing so many of the reps turn up, whether it be for my award-winning personality or the curly fries in particular or not. It's nice to see students feeling that they can show up, and they're so communicative, they're so kind of eager to talk to us about what's affecting them. And really receptive to kind of what we present as a students' union. So I've been really proud of that change, and I've already talked to my successor, and I think that the view is that they very much want to stick with that model of a less informal practice, doing it in a space that is dedicated to them as students, and of course feeding them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Heard it here, curly fries are the secrets to
if you need students around the table, offer free food, particularly curly fries.
Absolutely. No, I love that though, about making it a student-owned space.
Absolutely.
And building that community, and imagine it's created a lot of dialogue that wouldn't have happened in a more traditional kind of front-to-back lecture style approach. Another experience that you've had as president of Academic Life is you got to host an international delegation from Radboud University. I hope I'm saying their name right. In the Netherlands, they've come over to QMU's campus to talk about approaches to student partnership. What was that experience like, Jed?
Yeah, I think something that I took away from them was kind of the importance of senior management's involvement with student partnership. The reason that they didn't have necessarily as many student partnership initiatives or did as much work as we maybe do here was because there really was not that much buy-in from their senior leaders within the university. So I think that really served as an important reminder that, no matter how hard we as a union work or how hard academic staff work to enhance that process for students, you really, really need the buy-in from the leaders within the university.
At every level.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be a full-scale approach, not just various little factions working on it. So that was something I took away from them, was that importance. Because at the end of the day, we have the same common interest, and that's success for our students.
Absolutely.
And experience for our students.
That's such a great message,
Yeah, absolutely. I think students get the best possible support from us when we work together, not when we work separately. And I think having that space to still hold them accountable when they do things that we're not particularly happy with or that we don't believe are serving students. I think that was such an interesting concept to our colleagues from Radboud University. Being able to have that space, where we act as a union as the critical friend of the university. I think that was really interesting to them, and definitely something that I think and I hope that they took back with them.
We will follow up and see.
Yes.
I bet you can guess what's coming with this last piece. So before I wrap up, I would be remiss, as you come to the end of your term as president of Academic Life, got to face that dreaded last question of what's next?
What is next? I mean, the ideal plan is to take over the world. But I think starting a little bit smaller, nothing particularly specific. I always feel the best when I'm working with people, particularly if I can serve a purpose with people, if I can help and support, or serve as a representative. I have a drama degree, and I'm very I love to chat, I love to speak. Wherever I can use my skills and my outgoingness and kind of my personality to help other people, I think that's where I'm best suited. So I've been applying for a few roles that I think will allow me to go out and put that into practice. I always want to enjoy what I'm doing, and I think if I'm working around people, if I'm supporting people, then I will absolutely enjoy myself. Very similar to how it's been here. So although there is nothing specific that I have my sights set on, any role in which I can support or represent or advocate for proper support, I think will serve me well, and I think that's where I'm best suited.
Well, Jay, I have no doubt at all that you're going to wind up somewhere wonderful where you will be able to kind of imbue the kind of community vibe and feeling and investment that you've created here, and I love that. Building a career of supporting and helping people is a beautiful way to spend your life. So good choices. Wish you the best of luck. We'll go ahead and wrap things off here. So thank you, Jay, so much for joining us for this interview. Before we wrap up entirely, is there anywhere that you'd like people to kind of keep in touch or stay up to date with your last little bit of your work and your successor's work or things like that?
Yeah, so I'm probably most contactable within my remit as president through my president Instagram, where I boast a huge 700 followers. Totally joking, but at j.qmusupres. That's where I post a lot of my updates, and I share a lot of kind of the work that the union do in general, and that our students do. So if people are keen to know kind of what students get up to at QMU, you can give me a follow there.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for plugging it. Do follow up if you have questions, and you can follow Sparks on Blue Sky, X, and Instagram at Sparks-Scotland, and on LinkedIn at Sparks, and our website is sparks.ac.uk. If you want to recommend yourself or a colleague to join us for an interview like this, please do so via the website. We'd love to chat to you. And thank you again, Jay, so much for joining us for this wonderful Talking Student Partnership interview. We'll end things off there, and until the next conversation, thank you.